This is a MJ production. Good day and a warm welcome to you all. My name is Marius, and on this YouTube channel there will be different series. And one of these series is called the Disability Sport Talk Show. In the Disability Sport Talk Show, I'm going to focus on different disabilities like visually impairment, cerebral palsy, paraplegics, etc., and therefore also different sporting codes. In some episodes, my guest and I am going to introduce you to a sport, and in other episodes, my guest and I will discuss more technical aspects of a specific sport. If you have any questions or suggestions, you are welcome to post it in the comments of this channel. Or you can go to the Facebook page, MJ Productions Shows. M for Mike, MJ Productions, S at the end, Shows, also a S at the end. Do words like sports psychology, emotional intelligence, and performance coaching play any role in a sportsman or woman's life? If so, what impact does it have on an athlete's performance? Should a coach also go for sessions with a performance coach? Today, mental performance coach Christo Spies is my guest. My first question to him was, what is sports psychology?
I'm actually not a sports psychologist, but I prefer to be known as a mental performance coach. The thing is that sometimes when psychologists work with athletes, they call it sports psychology, but otherwise it's just normal psychology. So for me, mental coaching is a way that you can think so that you can perform despite the circumstances. It's a way of thinking clearly, and if I refer to sport mental coaching, then it's more about helping the athlete to think clearly under stress or under whatever circumstances they are.
But is it really necessary? And what difference can it make to an athlete?
I think if you think of able-bodied sport, there's many people that can hit the ball the way that Yannick Sinner hits the ball, and even better, but they can't do it consistently. And they are thrown by circumstances. If they're behind, they worry about not catching up. If they're ahead, they think they've got it. So there's a mental aspect in every single thing that we do. So your senses pick up things around you. And the mental coaching helps you to focus on what you have to do despite what's happening around you. So it actually enhances your performance, it enhances what you're doing so that you can do what you have to do or what you trained for and not be affected by outside influences.
Are there any misperceptions that people have about the value of mental performance coaching?
Yeah, I've encountered people that are very skeptical and think it's just for people that are weak or are not good enough, so they need more mental training. That's on the one side, but on the other side, I think there's people that think if they do the mental training, they don't have to train hard physically, and they don't have to do that part. So it's the two sides that I found. But it doesn't matter how mentally tough you are. If you don't do the skills part, the game plan, the physical part, and good enough, then you're not going to succeed. And on the other hand, even it doesn't matter how good you are. The top players in any sport nowadays have mental coaches and pay a lot of attention to that part of the game, because there's, especially with social media, there's all kinds of influences and they get affected by that. There's a fear of failure and the fear of success and all kinds of fears, and if you try to deal with it yourself, it's all in your head and it affects you. So there's many ways to deal with that.
Are there professional athletes who underestimate the value of a performance coach?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think, I I love to listen to interviews after games, and like the tennis tournaments and even the big rugby tournaments, whatever. I love to listen to the interviews, because that reflects on what they were thinking, because that's what it is. What are you thinking at that crucial moment in the game when you're serving for match point, or you're serving for the game, or you have to compete in, like say, javelin, and you know your opponent has just beaten your distance. Where is your head running? What's that extra something? So I think I've seen people underestimate where they just try harder. I was involved with a team where we made the final. And before the semi-final, I said to the coach, we need to just have an extra mental session so that the guys know exactly what's going to happen. But he preferred to have extra field sessions and to work harder on that. And in the game, the guys lost it mentally.
I remember many years ago, Northern Transvaal hosted the Currie Cup final against Free State. And the Free Staters know that the DJ will, during the game, he will play the Blue Bull song very loud. And it will be challenging to communicate with your team members. So during the week before the final, the Free Staters play the Blue Bull song during their training sessions, also very, very loud. So at the end, during the final, they were prepared for that situation.
Yeah, that was actually me that did that.
Okay.
So what I saw the week when we played the Blue Bulls during the season, how the guys affected. There were two kinds of effects that I can share, because the one was the songs. They hated that song. So I suggested to the coach that it affects them mentally. So we started playing that during the practice, and some of the guys started complaining. But after the second, third day, when I explained to them what's happening, they started singing it. The Blue Bull eet nie van die vloer af nie, and they started singing, and they were laughing. So when in the actual game, when they started the songs, every one of them started smiling. Because it was like, oh, we like the song, and they started singing it so it didn't affect him. The second thing that happened during the season is, as we walked out of the change room, the Blue Bull girls were lying there doing their stretches with very skimpy clothes on. And our guys like, wow, check out these girls. And when they went out for the warm-ups and stuff, their heads were still there with that girls. So what I did in the week before the final, I took photos of these girls and I put them up on the screen. I said, okay, what is this? What is this? And what are you going to do, or what are you going to think when you walk out of the change room and these girls are lying there and there? So a lot of guys had a lot of jokes and stuff, but then one guy, Robert Eberson, said he'll put his hand next to his eyes and he will not look at these girls. And so as we walked out of the change room, just when going for warm-up, here the girls were again, and all the guys just burst out laughing, and Robert put his hand next to his eyes, and everyone just cracked themselves, so it had zero effect on them.
So performance coaching is for any athlete, for an athlete to take part in a team sport or individual sport?
Yes, definitely. With teams, I normally do a team session to get all the principles down once a week, and then we do individual sessions, because it's only in the individual session, each person's different, and each person's their focus, their fears, whatever, how they apply the tools are different. So we do a team session to do the principles, but then individually we work with whatever skills they need to hone, or wherever they get thrown by circumstances. So I worked a lot with professional golfers and some tennis players. I haven't worked with top tennis players, but top South African tennis players, not top in the world. And that's so individual, and especially golf, there's too much time to think, and so they need that seriously.
Is performance coaching only there to help you in high-pressure situations, or does it also include your overall performance throughout the year?
No, I think it's for everything in life because, like I say to the athletes always, we're working on your specific sport, but it's your head that we're working on, and you take your head everywhere. So it's for relationships, it's for everything that you do because that affects you the way that you think, what you do, it affects you. So it's not just for the games. Obviously, we work towards the performance in the high pressure situations, and but it's for everything. It's for your practices. Because if you practice poorly, you will perform poorly. If you don't practice under pressure, then when the pressure comes in the game, then you don't know how to cope with it. So I've seen golfers that can hit the ball perfectly on the practice tee, but there's no pressure. And they don't practice that, and that's a mental skill as well to apply there. And then if they during practices something happens, then that you deal with it mentally, so that in the game when the pressure is on, that you can perform properly.
Is it necessary for coaches to also see a performance coach?
Yeah, I think that's crucial. Billy Graham said the coach has more influence in a year than most people have in their lifetime. And we've got a course that we do with coaches that says that the two of the most important words in anyone's language is yes, coach. So the coach is so important, and I've worked with one or two teams where the coach is not really interested. He knows the player, it has a good influence on the players, but then he's on his iPad during the session, my session, or he leaves it to the players themselves, and that doesn't have that much influence. But then I've worked with coaches like Streak from Zimbabwe. I was with the Zimbabwe cricket team, and Lance Kloosner. And there's a guy called Spook Leroux that coached the South African karate team. So when I worked with them, the moment they come to the team, then they enhance whatever we've done and say, how are you going to apply it now in this practice? How are you going to do this? And immediately it has almost double the effect of just my words.
In some team sports, the team management is very large. You have coaches, assistant coaches, team doctors, physiotherapists, team managers, etc. Should those people also attend sessions with a performance coach, since they can also have a positive or negative influence on the players?
Yeah, you're so right. I normally make a point when I work with a team, a professional team, they all have physiotherapists. So I normally work with a physiotherapist because when the guy's lying down there for a massage or for a treatment or whatever, he's vulnerable, he's open, he's not going anywhere. So I help the physiotherapist to impart proper words. So there's a biblical principle: speak life and not death. So to speak life into them, because it's so easy that the conversation go to the injury or the muscle tightness or the negative things. And it's not negative, it's just the practical things. But then for him to go to the solutions or to go to if my whole system is to instill hope. Because hope in the future gives you power in the present. So if the physio, while the guy's lying there, have the tools to instill hope, then immediately the guy getting up there from the physio table he's got hope for the future and he's empowered to do whatever he needs to do then.
How often should an athlete see a sports psychologist or a mental coach?
Oh, that's difficult to say. I've worked with players, when they start with me, they were already mentally tough. And there's many reasons, like upbringing. I found that people that had a bit of a tougher upbringing or something happened to them in their lives that they had to overcome, they already know how to deal with it. So it's easier working with those people. But guys that are not mentally tough, that had a very privileged upbringing, it's a little more difficult, but I prefer to see them weekly. And because I see them once a week, and then then I give them homework. It's not really homework, but it's to apply what they learn, because it's no use. I give them the information, and the information gets into them, but the information needs to go through them and apply it. And when they applied it, then we come back and say, this worked and this didn't work, and then we adjust it.
How long beforehand should you start with consulting a mental coach, or that I assume that depends on the specific athlete, from one athlete to another?
Yeah, that's true. I prefer starting in pre-season, whatever it is. So because then there's not much pressure. It's just they have the go. They start practicing and they start honing their skills. And I think when you start to pre-season, that's the best. But I've started with teams halfway through the season, or when they were down or up. I prefer not to, because I've had teams that contact me like they're going to play a semi-final now or final. And I said to him, do you realize if I come in now, what you're actually telling your players is that they're not mentally ready. And they've made the semi-final, they made the final. So I'd rather give you some skills that you can work with them. Don't mess with their heads now by bringing in someone like me. So I think you can start at any time, but the earlier the better. And normally I do about 6 sessions with all the basic principles, the tools, and then it's just like keeping it up, adjusting, etc.
Are there basic aspects that I, as an athlete or coach, should focus on to improve performance, or is it not that simple?
I think my whole system is instilling hope, and there's 2 parts to that. The first is that you need to know what you want, and the second one is the mental toughness. And unfortunately, that's where most psychologists go, is to the mental toughness part, is that it's dealing with a problem. But if you only deal with a problem, it takes over your head. That's what you're thinking about. So I go back to, okay, it doesn't matter what the problem is. The first question I ask, okay, what do you want? What do you actually want? Not whether it's possible, what do you want? And get that picture out there, and then deal with whatever's in your way to deal with that. So that's the 2 parts that I work with. So for coaches, if I can say, the biggest thing is to create the right pictures, because our minds think in pictures and our minds work in pictures. So if I say, don't think of an elephant, immediately I take your mind to the elephant. But if I say think of a lion, then I take your mind to the lion. So if it's a ball sport and I say don't drop the ball, then the picture is dropping the ball, and it affects my whole being. But if I say, I've got exercises to prove that. But if I say I want to catch the ball, that's a much different picture. So if you do long jump and I mustn't overstep, that's in your mind, and it's like your body reacts to the pictures in your mind. So instead of saying, I don't want to overstep, I want to step behind the line. And immediately your whole body sort of works towards that. So the biggest thing that for coaches and for athletes is to change the pictures. And to say, even something basic like, I'm always late, I don't want to be late, don't be late tomorrow. It's to say, be on time. Immediately that changes the picture. So to change that picture to what you want and not what you don't want. And that has a huge influence on the functioning.
Some coaches believe in a militaristic approach of breaking someone down first and then building them up. What is your comment on this approach?
If you look at any psychological test, the most basic ones have 4 quadrants. And that everyone has anything of those quadrants, but those quadrants represent different people's emotional state, functioning, etc. And the militaristic approach will work for one of those quadrants. So it'll probably work for 25%. So if I put you down and I grind you, and then for 25% of the population, those people will get up. I'll show him, and they will be motivated by that. Then there's a second quadrant that's sort of a little bit be a little bit motivated by that, and will try their best and listen. But then there's at least two of those quadrants, and one in particular that won't function properly. They will be effective, and there will always be relationship issues between the coach and them, and they'll always keep quiet, and you will never get anything out of it. So if I work with coaches and teams, we normally do a basic test, and so that they can see, and then that you will treat each athlete according to his functioning. And that's when you get the best out of them. And the course that I'm talking about from the 3D Institute is that you get to the hearts and the minds of the players, because some coaches treat the athletes just like performance tools, and they just need to perform and win and etc. But if they don't have their minds and they don't have their hearts, they don't have the full player. And those coaches who have the hearts and minds of players, they take it to the next level, and that's when coaches get the best out of their players.
But can the question not arise, you are now breaking down the player, say for example it is a rugby player, then you build that player up again. Now that player reaches the point where he finishes his rugby career. Who is he after his rugby career?
Yeah, that's a big thing. I've worked with a team where the coach was like that, and after we've done the test, and to say, then when he started, like the first video session we had after that, it was funny because he started shouting at a guy and said, "What are you again?" And when the guy said, "I'm one of these quadrants that's more sensitive," then he said, "Okay, then I'll have to speak to you in a different way." And everyone started laughing, but immediately they understood each other, and you could get more out of the player. So I actually deviated from your question now because I was thinking of that. Just repeat the question again, please.
So if a coach has this militaristic approach of first breaking a player down and then building him up again, when the player one day finishes his sporting career, does the question not arise, who am I now after my sports career? I was a rugby player, but I'm now done playing rugby. Who am I now?
Yes, that is crucial. I only discovered the last 2 years when one of the players that I worked with for our national cricket team ended up in depression when he retired. I couldn't understand it because he's mentally tough, but then I found out it was an identity issue. So even if we worked on their identity, who are you, etc., we worked from a perspective of a rugby player or cricket player or whatever. That was in the back of their mind because everything we did was focused on what they want for as a rugby player. And so in the last 2 years, and even now with whatever we do, we start with identity, because before you know before you want to instill hope by knowing what you want and the mental toughness, you need to know who you are, and not what you do, because people we see identity nowadays with a gender and stuff, and that's not your identity. People see their identity as what they have, what they do, and what people say about you, or what you learned about yourself throughout the years. But that's not who you are. Who you are is how God created you in your mother's womb, and there's an identity. And the moment people discover that identity, then there's no more competition, there's no more comparison, because if I know who I am, I don't have to compare myself with others, I don't have to compete, I don't have to have self-protection and self-promotion. Then I can be who I am. And that's the big thing that I try to do now with people, is that they need to find out who they are before we go to all the mental stuff. But otherwise it's just for the performance, and then it's exactly what you say. When they retire, then they don't know how to deal with it, and they do stupid things just to get in the limelight or to be seen again or to help people remember them or whatever.
How should players deal with disappointment? Say, for example, you lost a semi-finals or especially a final.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because you can't just say it's going to be okay or forget it. There's no ways to do that. But to go, and if you analyze it, normally they go what they did wrong. So I normally start and say, okay, what worked? What worked for you? Because you can be at your best and still lose. And so you can play really, really well and still lose. The other player can just be better on the day. So we normally start with, okay, what worked, and then what would you do differently if you had another chance? And immediately you go to solutions and not to the problem. So if I say, what would you do differently? I'll do this, and they know. So we go that and say, okay, now what do you want for the next game, or what do you want for practices this week, or what do you want? So we go to that, what you want again, and then we deal with that. So there are ways to deal with the emotion part of it, but you don't ignore it, or you don't say it's okay, because it's not okay. They go through the trauma of the loss or whatever, but then to just refocus. And I thought Lars Klusner was an amazing coach, because we sat down and he said, now how can I talk to my players? Like when they come off the field, like halfway they did the fielding and now they're going to bat, all other way around, and they messed up a little. Normally coaches go in there and nail the guys with their words, and then we had a deal where I said to him, okay, what are you going to say to the players? And then he tells me, then I used to say to him, is that something that they need to hear, or is it something you want to get off your chest? And if you want to get it off your chest, tell me. So, and then he could go, they did this. And when you got to the players, you could go to the solutions, what they need to do next. And that was amazing.
So in short, we can say there is a right and a wrong way to deal with disappointments.
Yeah, definitely. The right way is looking for solutions on what happened, and the wrong way is just focusing on what was wrong and keep hammering them on what they did wrong, because that sticks in your mind. If I keep on repeating that, that's the pictures in your mind. Even if it's just something like, don't tackle high again. You tackled high, it was a yellow card, and you keep on going there. That keeps the player there, and then he takes it forward in the game. That's in the subconscious mind. But it's how we deal with it is to say, you can't tackle high, it's going to be a yellow card. So next time is a new opportunity. And it takes your mind to, okay, I can do it next time. I can't change the way I did it before, but next time you tackle low and you do this. So then you give the solution of what you want. And immediately it doesn't guarantee, but it gives a much better chance of him doing that. And it settles the coach, because he told them now what they should be doing.
That's something that you're already touching on. People all have different personalities. How important is it for me as a coach or the team captain to understand each player's personality and react on that?
I think it's one of the most important things. I just think of the movie Blindside, where this American rugby football player, huge black guy that gets taken in by this small this white family, and there's a small young lady, and the coach tried to push him to force, etc. And then she came and she said, protect your players like you protect your young brother. And immediately there was a huge change in this guy, and then this lady said to the coach, I think you should get to know your players. And I've seen that with coaches. The moment they get to know the players, and then they speak to them the way that get the most out of them, it takes them to a total new level.
Have there been studies on the influence of spectators whether their presence or absence, or whether they support your team or the opposition?
Yeah, definitely. For spectators play a role, and so we try to deal with it. Just with the influence on, like we talked about the songs. We had another info where when I worked with the Free State Cheetahs, then when we came down to play Western Province, the crowd goes, Province, Province. And this young Robert Everson, just out of school playing his first game there, people warned him against that. So he said, what are you going to do? You know, how are you going to rephrase it? And he came up and said, he's going to hear Robert instead of Province, and it changed everything. So to prepare for spectators, and I watch a lot of tennis now, and with the influence on where they have one favorite, like at the French Open. They have, like Nadal was always the favorite, and anyone playing against him, they boo. There's hardly any applause for a great shot from the opponents. But like if you hear some players, like the top players, Djokovic or Federer in the past, they said no, they love the energy of the player, so they don't see that they are against him. And for Nadal, they love the energy. So it's just a refocus, a mental refocus in their minds instead of, the spectators are against me.
I think when you are focusing on the spectators who are against you, it can be very overwhelming. If you play, say, on Twickenham and there are, say, 40,000 people against you supporting the English team.
Yeah, definitely, but I see that with spectators, it's crucial. So you have to refocus the privilege of being on the field and enjoying the atmosphere and stuff. So it's just a mental refocus. But also, I've seen players where the spectators, their family is there, or the coaches. So they keep on looking. Are they looking? Are they here? Where are they? So we need to get away from that part as well, because they need to focus on the game. They need to be where they are. They need to be 100% present with this play that's taking place now, and not look around whether they are there and whether they're seeing. So that's another part of the spectators that you have to deal with.
How do I know when I need a sports psychologist or a mental coach?
I think when you play, you need one. So I think there's people think they can deal without it, and depends on the level that you're competing. But I think I've worked with normal club players or at the moment there's some school players where parents get me into work with their children where they are excessive hard on themselves. Or they throw tantrums when they lose a point. And all we need to do is just channel that, because that's actually not a bad thing. It means they are serious about what they're doing. So I just need to help them to focus, to get that energy that goes into the being hard on themselves or throwing a tantrum if they lose the point, to focus that energy towards the next part that they're going to do, so that they can actually perform well. And that's quite easy to do. I just had a boy now that he hit his leg so hard. He played cricket. He plays cricket. So he hit his head his leg so hard every time he bowled a bad ball or made a mistake, and he got so angry that he started screaming at the players. And suddenly he's changed, and he got promoted immediately because they saw the change in attitude. He was actually had to see someone, because he was expelled from the game or suspended from the game. He wasn't allowed to play the next game because of that. And now he's been promoted because suddenly he changed just by a mental adjustment.
Could you please explain what emotional intelligence is and elaborate on whether it has any impact on an athlete's performance?
Yeah, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't, and I'm not an expert on emotional intelligence. I see the value of emotional intelligence because that influences the way that people think in the mental game. And I used to think, of that's like weaker people or whatever, but many years ago. But I see the value of being emotional intelligence. These people that are emotionally intelligent deal with stuff differently, and that especially applies to coaches, because the coaches that are not emotionally intelligent, they the guys that just nail the players and want to get the best out of them. But the moment they get more emotionally intelligent, then they deal with them in a different way. But I think a part of what I do is also assisting people to become emotionally intelligent as they become mentally tough. I think I define it a little different from my perspective as a mental coach.
My last question. Can we say that sports psychology, emotional intelligence, and mental performance coaching are three separate specialized fields, each a science with a major impact on an athlete's career?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's more and more research on that, and there's more and more proof almost of that. And like I said, I watch a lot of tennis, and I see all those top players have a mental coach now, which they didn't have before, and even a full-time mental coach traveling with them. So it's different. I worked a lot with cricket players, so I still have these cricket players that I have contact with, even they're in India or wherever, that can just check in and just touch base. So I think it's becoming more and more of a science, and I haven't worked on that level. I'm for the last 7 years I've been involved with SCAS, the Sport for Christ Action South Africa. So I moved away from teams, being with a professional team. So I work with these coaches, and we take the coaches through the programs that we have to help them to give them practical ways to get to the hearts and minds of the players, and not just the practical parts. So I've moved a bit away from it, but I still read a lot on the mental coaches side, and especially in the US, it's become a science, and there's scientists testing the brain waves and testing all kinds of things that were not there when I did teams, and it's really gone to a next level now.
And the emotional intelligence and the psychology, can we also say that is also a specialist fields?
Yeah, I think it's interlinked in many ways, okay. And it overlaps in many ways. So I'm not all that familiar with the psychology or emotional intelligence as such per definition. So I'm reluctant to just give an answer about that.
This brought us to the end of this episode. Christo, thank you very much for your time. If there are enough interest, I can try for a follow-up interview. If you have any questions or suggestions, you are welcome to post it in the comments of this YouTube channel. You will also see on the screen Christo's contact details. For those who cannot read it, you can contact Christo via email christo@christospies.com. christo@christospies.com. You spell Christo, CHRISTO, and Spies, SP for Papa, IES. Christo@christospies.com. His cell phone number 084 601 5705. Please remember the international code for South Africa is +27. Next time, Rebecca Cullum is my guest, and she will talk more about wheelchair basketball. Till then, goodbye and stay safe. This was a MJ production.